So when the Americans were fighting in Vietnam, they realized that the ability to observe, this whole thing, OODA came in, that a pilot who's able to observe, orient himself, decide his next course of action and act, is able to get behind the opposing aircraft. In the battlefield, the ability to fuse data, the ability to present a common operating picture.
Army is in itself is everything. Whenever time requires, they can become anything.
So, it's called the Boyd's Loop. It's based on an Air Force pilot of the US Air Force, John Boyd. So it is happening on a near immediate basis because that is a battlefield requirement. You don't do that, you suffer damages. So the first aspect where AI as a service makes a clear impact in the military is the battlefield management systems.
Today, we are joined by Major General Ravi Murugan, a leader who has commanded troops on the frontiers for years and now, after retirement from the army, advises AI companies that are shaping India's future. From safeguarding our borders to guiding a defense startup, Neuralix, on AI-driven situational awareness, General Ravi's journey shows why India cannot afford to be slow in adopting AI. In this episode, he shares what the army has taught him about trust, speed, and decision making, and why those lessons matter for the fast changing business environment today. Also joining me is my co host, Mr. Akshay Raj, CEO of Unolabs. Welcome to Data and AI Exchange by Unolabs.
Thank you.
Welcome, Major General Ravi Murugan.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Prateek, for inviting me. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this, especially on a subject which is so topical.
So, sir, I will start right away with my first question. And I'm very curious to know that how does your military experience shape the way you see India's urgency to adopt AI across various industries?
Right. It's a good question because we are right now in the information age, right? And if you read Alvin and Heidi Toffler and War and Anti-War, which was published, I think, in the 1990s, it said that we fight as we make money. A country fights as it makes money. For example, if a country is in an agricultural economy, it fights, which is manpower intensive manner, which was what the world was before the Industrial Revolution. You fought as a peasant army, which got converted. Whether peacetime they used to cultivate and wartime they used to fight. Then Industrial Revolution happened, and people made money through manufacturing lines and industrial scale production, organization, and we started fighting like that. Today, the world is in the information age. We make money through information and data. So there is no option but the military to fight that way because these things are interlinked. And there is no better there is no better way for the military to fight for the simple reason that national security and the ability to fight effectively is based on information. And so we should be one of the leaders in implementing AI in the manner we function and the manner we fight. So I hope that in a nutshell is why the military should be adopting AI, the forefront of the AI revolution within the country.
When we were discussing earlier, right, we came to know that you were using data like in the year 2000, right, for your to make a plan and all. So would you let us know about what those stories, how you use the data to plan the future wars and everything.
Right. See, data, as the cliched saying, data is the new oil. And data has always been important. It's not that data has assumed importance because we are in the information age. The only fact is that the relevance of data has been recognized so much more. So the point which you allude to is that in 2000, I was on a desk which was managing, at that time we used to call it insurgency, then it transitioned to the proxy war, Pakistan-sponsored proxy war in Jammu and Kashmir. So I used to monitor data. As I was a major in Army headquarters, and I used to monitor data. Now, the way to monitor data is we get situation reports from various formations which are spread across trouble-prone areas. And you collate information from it. One way to collate information is through registers and through documenting it. Now to retrieve that and to identify trends, to identify patterns, to be predictive in your assessments, it used to be extremely difficult. So we went and we actually converted every sit rep which we used to get on a daily basis into data through, at that time we used to use Microsoft Access. It's a RDBMS program, and it in fact served our purpose. To over 90% of our requirements were met in when we could query it and we could identify specific trends and patterns, which then influenced our deployment and operations. Case in point is that we would send some new formation into a certain area. The anecdotal wisdom would be that it should lead to greater results. But when we actually compared data, we found that the results which were before sending this new formation was exactly the same as after sending it. Only thing is that the portions, the success got divided into more claimants and parties. But the overall result remained the same. You require to see data from a very generic and a bird's eye view to find out that the result of this new deployment hasn't really made much of a difference. So you could adapt it. So dynamically, you could adapt it based on the ability to query the data which we used to feed in. Something which would have taken us 7 days to arrive at by digging through registers and through documents, we could query it and get that result within the speed of query, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. So the fact is that to make sense of data, you require to be able to analyze quantums of data, which humanly it takes a lot of time and is riddled with errors. Whereas at that time when we used Microsoft Access, I still remember we transitioned from Excel actually to Microsoft Access. So, and we found this extremely useful. And it actually for 3 years, that used to be the backbone of our identifying the situation, the specific situation in that trouble prone area. What do we need to do to manage or to address certain criticalities which the data was predicting was happening? So in a way, yes, this was in 2000. And so that's what I meant when I said the army has no option, because for us, you have to be extremely flexible and agile. Otherwise, the results are such that your functioning gets hampered unless you are fast enough to adapt to changes. And the ability to read data gave us the capability to adapt to changes which we could not have otherwise discerned through human intervention or human analysis.
So, Major General Ravi, it's good to know that you are using this data in the year 2000. When I think the data and all, we used to recognize the importance of data. I think it started in 2003 and all. When we really understand what is the importance of data, and basically we keep on improving on all those things. Till now, the real problem statement what we see in the organization till date is it's about data is everywhere, but how structured those data is, that's a very big question mark. And
Right.
hats off to you guys. You people were using Microsoft Access to maintain those data. And Pratik, it is very good to know that at that time, right now we are saying in AI predictive analytics and all, right? At that time when we were
Right.
using predictive analytics through the data on Microsoft Access, that is really, it's amazing to hear that one.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
uh, 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 Major General Ravi, in the army, right, command responsibility always lies with humans, right? You people, you do have a very good voice and all, used to command, in a very different way. So, how can India's companies adopt the same principle when deploying AI in business decisions?
Absolutely. See, I would also like to quote certain examples because I work with an AI company, and I have now had some exposure as to how Indian private companies are responding to the opportunities and challenges of AI. So, the first and foremost, to answer your question directly, AI needs to be viewed as an advisor, as a facilitator, not the decision maker, right? Ultimately, AI throws up trends, patterns, predictions, and assessments, but ultimately, it has to go through the human in the loop. The human in the loop decides, and with his experience, with his knowledge, with his intuitiveness, he decides as to what needs to be followed, what makes sense, what probably is an outlier. That those decisions a human has to take. It cannot be, because the data is very objective, but the data doesn't have context, right? Context is provided by a human being in the loop. So companies need to view AI, data and AI, as tools which assist them in doing the job far more efficiently and far more effectively, right? As long, for that, they need to understand the power of cleaning and analyzing and using data. They have to know that it actually makes a difference. And mostly you find in industry, the problem in industry is, to my mind, is the top management which is presently there in industry today haven't worked with data to the degree that they are all believers. So they are hostage to advisors within the vertical itself, right? Within the company, every company has IT cells, every company has technology branches, and they advise them. Now, as we know, in most organizations, change is top driven. While we like to assume that change should happen bottom up, change and should have, it's a flat structure and everybody contributes and the environment decides change. Unfortunately, it is not so. Change is always top driven. And unless the person at the top knows the advantages and the benefits what data and AI is going to provide, change is going to be purely symbolic. So for that, everybody has to get their hands dirty. That people on the top should know. I gave an example to you in our last interaction. A huge steel manufacturer, a private company, we had gone in there and we advised them as to how we can make use of sensor monitoring, monitoring certain data parameters, and subsequently tweaking processes wherein there would be savings, or rather increase in efficiency by 15%. Now, in volumes, 15% is huge, right? Now, from the time we went and gave our assessment as to how AI would be able to help this whole process, to the time when POCs, I told you about this, POCs in India are always, every company, it doesn't matter whether it's a $1 trillion company or every company wants a free POC. They don't want to pay for the POC. Be that as it may, even if it's a free POC, to get the free POC running, up and running, it took us 9 months. 9 months from the time the initial presentation was made to the top management to the time we deployed people to show that 15% efficiency improvement can happen by use of AI. It took us 9 months. Imagine if a big private company, which is, as it is, is in terms of resources, it's resource rich, that is taking so much time to understand the advantages of AI. What is happening to smaller ones? So the top management is, to my mind, is the biggest hurdle right now, because they are paying lip service to this. They are hostage to the advice which is being given by interest-driven segments within the company, because nobody wants somebody else to come and tell you that you can do it more efficiently. So the people inside probably then makes them feel that our value is not as much as it would have been earlier. So it doesn't really progress forward. So there are a lot of these human frailties, I would call that, human emotions which come into play. And the top management needs to cut through all that. They should be clear that, yes, let's see as to what advantages it provides and order a POC, paid, free, whatever it be. And let's see in 3 months' time whether it produces the results which the company which is doing this claims it's producing. You have nothing to lose, isn't it? There is a gain only which is going to happen. Nothing is being stopped. But even then, that decision. So, as an aside, my personal view is decision making is a skill. We need to teach decision making, especially as a person grows through the ranks, whether it be private sector, government, anywhere. Decision making doesn't come naturally. It is a skill. It has to be taught.
So, Dylan Ravi, I am completely aligned with you. I will discuss with you, I just gave you one instance, at Unolabs, because, uh, there are 3 to 4 sectors we work very, very in depth. So, the moment we enter into the manufacturing side, the similar kind of experience at Unolabs, we also facing the same kind of things, till date. The one thing is there, Ravi, I'm completely aligned with you, about the free POC part in India, right? Everyone forces for the free POC. Trust me, the POC, it itself includes at least 30 to 40% of the total work hours for the complete project. So for the
Absolutely.
startups, right, it is really very difficult, right? See, the thing is, POC isn't it never says that after POC the product will be given or not, right?
Absolutely.
Now you tell me, if there are a number of leads, and if we are able to do the free POCs for everyone, right? And if we when if we get one or two, we pass one or two, again, it's a well lots of time the startups have already invested. So it's a humble request to, if even if the top CEOs and the C-suite people are listening to this podcast, I know a humble request, from the startups like Labs, please do not ask for the free POC, because it takes hell lots of efforts, money, time, everything, and it's difficult
And
as
one
well.
more thing,
So
one more thing. One more thing. In addition to all that time and effort, when they pay for, it doesn't matter what they pay. When they pay for that POC, they have skin in the game, right? They have a stake in it. They are not observers neutrally watching, oh, you are going to fail now. When they have money in it, then they are also involved in that entire process. So it is also to show partnership in it. It is not, you're absolutely right. Startups will collapse when they're doing a multiple free POCs. But I'm also saying for the companies, it is also showing their involvement and showing that we are partners in this.
And
Yeah.
generally, this is what I keep on saying this, in a business, whatever it is, right? Sweat and money, both are equally, important. Sweat is important, the
Right.
labor, the hard work is important, but at the same time, if money is not involved, that the seriousness will not come. And this is why, we
Absolutely.
ask for always a paid POC, not for the free POC, right? And and this is basically, I'm talking about the manufacturing side of it. This is what we
Mhm.
have felt till date. uh, yeah, so coming back to my next question, General Ravi, uh, in high stakes environments like the army, right, how do you build trust
Right.
in AI systems that may sometimes fail or mispredict?
Right. Uh, you know, uh, Trust is a function of proven performance. We are aware of that. So when we know that this works, whether it be on an individual, we know he will deliver. So we have trust in that person. It's when something is there, is at a nascent stage or is being introduced newly, it takes time to develop trust. Because we are waiting to see what the outcomes are. But having said that, even in something which is newly being introduced, as long as there has been rigorous testing, as long as there is transparency, as long as there is feedback, there is going to be trust. The problem comes in because there is a lack of transparency when people do something. When a new project is being, let's say I'm doing a POC with the same manufacturer, let's take the same steel manufacturer, and I make him part of this, and I tell him that I will walk it through these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and after the fourth step we will find the differences coming in. These are the indicators of those differences. These will be signals, or these were the midterm indicators of it. This will be the short term indicators of this. So when we tell them that these will be the signs that the thing is working, or these are the signs that the system is adjusting, then people automatically start seeing that, and when they see it happening, there is trust which is generated. So to my mind, once AI is implemented, then the results themselves will generate trust, because the results are absolutely indisputable. We are seeing it time and again, that whenever we start analyzing data in an intelligent manner, and we bring in AI, machine learning, predictive aspects of it, trend recognition, everything, but obviously the system is going to be more efficient. It is from what it was before. What is the degree will vary. So once the outcomes are seen, trust gets built. But during the initial stages, there is a need for transparency, there is a need for feedback, there is a need for hand holding by the company which is now providing this implementing this AI solution in that manufacturing, whether it be services or even retail. For the as far as the army goes, we have always been innovative. I know, in terms of, because ultimately battlefield results are the final asset, the litmus test for it. And to get battlefield results, you have to adopt what works. And you do not know what works unless you try multiple things. You may think this works, but it may not work. So you should be ready with plan B, plan C, plan D. Maybe you're attempting plan A and B together to know which one is going to be more effective, because you have no time, nor do you have the luxury of failing multiple times. So battlefield is the biggest, I'll give an example. Russia, Ukraine, the war is ongoing over 3 years. Every week, the FPV innovation happens on a weekly basis. An FPV is a first-person view drone, a kinetic drone which is being used to attack material, personnel, vehicles by both sides. Now, an FPV gets jammed because it's got electronic signals. It's taking navigation from the satellites. It's being fed instructions by an operator. So what the opposing side does, whether it be Russian or Ukraine, is they try and jam those signals. Now, that is a real battlefield challenge. So how do you overcome it? Within a week, you have these optical fiber controlled FPVs. That means the instructions are going through optical fibers. It cannot be jammed. Now, how do you overcome that? So there is a solution now being come out. They're coming out with a solution to even try and address the challenge of an optical fiber controlled drone. So it is happening on a near immediate basis, because that is a battlefield requirement. You don't do that, you suffer damages. You may possibly lose that battle. You may possibly lose the war in the ultimate analysis. So for that, as far as the army goes, innovativeness, I feel, should be hardwired in every army, because ultimately the consequences are too severe for you not to innovate, because you have to identify what works. And to identify what works, you have to try a plethora, multiple things. And in this case, AI, by virtue of the speed of decision, it allows you a speed of decision making. There is no other way you can match changes which are happening on the battlefield. You do that from basically from a human basis, you're going to be slow. When you allow the machine to do all those jobs which it does well, and it does in a manner, in an extremely rapid and speedy manner, then you are able to be ahead of the curve. There is a term which they call the OODA Loop. In every battle, observe, orient, decide, and act. You should be able to observe, orient, decide, and act. Anybody who goes through that cycle faster has an advantage, because you're acting faster. Your observation, orientation, decision, movements get compressed when you use machine learning and AI into it. And obviously, you're going to respond faster than the adversary. And that gives you, and when you do that repeatedly, it gives you a battle winning advantage. So to my mind, there is no option. And of course, the military is adopting AI, not only the Indian, but globally, you find the military adopts AI much faster.
Yeah. Wonderful, sir. This was a great framework that you just told, right? Amazing. I feel that in recent past years, Indian Army has been, and the defense forces altogether have been, adopting to new technologies at much faster rate than most of the corporates, right? And that's like it's an inspiration for Indian companies as well, Indian companies and startups. So my question, General Ravi, here would be that, how important do you think is that India should build its own AI stack, like how you're building Neuralix for defense sector? India should have such AI indigenous stacks instead of relying on foreign technologies. How important do you feel this matter?
I mean, see, it's inevitable. The point is that strategic autonomy require for strategic autonomy you require indigenous capabilities. There is no other option for it. The simple fact is, you just look at it. We will come to data stacks and things later, but let me just highlight one aspect. Today, when Ukraine fights Russia, Ukraine is on a support system of entire Western Europe and the US, right? And let's say tomorrow that support disappears, Ukraine loses. So if you are going to be independent strategically, or you want to exercise autonomy strategically, you have to have the capability of standing alone. And if you want to stand alone, you require indigenous capabilities. You can't be dependent on imported wherewithal, whether it be equipment, whether it be weapons, whether it be data. So the data, as I said, the power of analysis or the power of AI rests in the training data. So what is AI going to get trained on? It's going to get trained on certain data sets. And if you have those data sets, which are your own data sets, that AI becomes that much more effective. For example, again, let me come back to Russia, Ukraine. In Russia, Ukraine, the Ukrainians have over 2 million hours, 2 million hours of training data on the employment of drones on the battlefield. They have 15,000 drone feeds which have been getting recorded in terms of various tactical sets. And so the AI, the autonomous systems which they are going to build, is going to now feed on those 2 million hours of data which they already have present. It is equivalent to about 228 years of fighting, I believe. If you draw the equivalence of drawing this amount of data with actually fighting, it would take you 228 years of fighting to generate that data. So the fact is that having indigenous stacks is extremely important, whether it be chips, whether it be clouds, whether it be data sets, whether it be foundational models. Each of this must have a strong domestic base. Partnerships, of course, I fully understand the fact that none of it can be grown de novo. You require partnerships if you want to scale it in timelines which are effective. So partnerships are welcome, but the residence has to be within the country. The residence cannot be outside, because it affects your, especially from a defense perspective, it affects national security. There is no doubt about that. But to my mind, even from a private sector perspective, it should reside here because it's a competitive advantage. Why should you allow competitive advantage to slip away elsewhere? When GE, General Electric, makes jet engines and it sells you jet engines, it doesn't transfer technology. Why should it transfer technology? Because once it transfers it, you compete with them. So why should it transfer technology to you? Similarly, if the data is homegrown and the data is resident, and you are now allowing it to be hosted elsewhere, you're losing a competitive advantage. So from a manufacturing perspective or from an industrial perspective also, I don't think data should reside elsewhere. Partnerships, yes. From a military perspective, there is absolutely no debate on it, because it affects national security. So yes, and in this Neuralix, I must say, Neuralix is doing a great job. They are an extremely innovative company. They function, they have core competence in a lot of fields. And they have done 2 projects already for the military, especially in battlefield management systems, sensor data fusion, predictive maintenance, and pattern recognition. They have completed projects which have already been fielded in certain military formations. And right now they are doing an MOD project, which is a big project for AI as a service for the army. So hopefully they should deliver results which would be benefit the army in the long term.
So, Ravi, you just said a very big thing, AI, Neuralix, using AI in the, as a SaaS in the army. So, will you please talk, more about this one? This is fascinating.
There. Yeah. So you're aware of the fact that world today, the battlefield is there is a proliferation of sensors, right? There is no complete transparency on the battlefield today, whether it be satellite based, whether it be aircraft, whether it be ground mounted radars, whether it be drone mounted sensors. There is a lot. 10 years ago, let me give you a comparison. 10 years ago, the amount of data which was being generated as compared to the amount of data which was being processed, there was a mismatch. That means the data being generated was not so much. The ability to process it, you had excess capacity because the data, the generation of volumes of data was not as much. In about 10 or 12 years back, when sensors started proliferating every place, whether it be, I'm talking about even your streets, AI cameras, motion detecting cameras being put at various places, you had sensors coming everywhere. When sensors started proliferating, the amount of data which was getting generated was exponentially higher. And therefore, your ability to process that data actually dropped. It was, you're functioning at the highest possible bandwidth. Every spectrum in the electromagnetic spectrum, nearly every frequency has been, completely saturated with the amount of data and data processing which is taking place. So the fact is that in the battlefield, the ability to fuse data, the ability to present a common operating picture, the ability to see as to what trends and patterns could lead to an activity later down the line. These are all critical functions. So unless you have AI and ML as part of it, it's going to be extremely difficult for humans to make sense of it in the time frames, in the viable time frames needed. So the first aspect where AI as a service makes a clear impact on the military is the battlefield management systems, to ensure that a common operating picture is being produced, which allows decision makers with information and cogent information outcomes, using that as a backdrop to take decisions. That is the first aspect. Having said that, the other aspects are equally important, whether it be logistics or maintenance. Vehicles, you have the number of platforms in the military is huge, right? You go, it would run into hundreds of, 100,000, hundreds of thousands in terms of platforms, whether it be small vehicles to larger vehicles, to tanks, to armored vehicles, to aircraft. In terms of numbers, it would be huge. Having said that, the ability to carry out predictive maintenance, the ability to find out health of the system, the ability to synergize supply chains, spare part movements, all that have got huge efficiency and financial connotations. Human resource management. Today, you have the army is 1.1 million or let's say 12 lakh strong. How do you position people to the best of their capabilities? So from a human perspective, you are so swamped with the numbers that a lot of it is going to be done in a hurry and probably not thought through. But when you use AI and you put in algorithms, when you put in filters and when you put in parameters, you are able to do that job far more efficiently and to the satisfaction of the organization and the individual. So in every facet of the military functioning, whether it be administrative, whether it be logistics, whether it be tactical and operational, you will have a significant role of AI.
General Ravi, it is very good to know that, Army is really taking help of space technology. And, see, basically, this I've heard, read, and seen as well. Army is in itself is everything. Whenever time requires, they can become anything. They can become a doctor, they can become a mechanical engineer, they can become a civil engineer, they can become a fighter. So whatever whatever the thing is, whatever the time requires, they can have expertise into all those things. And really, good to see that that we are using this AI in in the army as well. So see, when we talk about army, definitely, the one thing which is which is again, we haven't seen these things anywhere. That is the talent, that is the leadership.
Yeah.
When it comes to leadership, again, everyone turns around the army, whether it is India, it is US, the UK, Russia, wherever you are. But the thing is, you have to look after the leadership. Just go and see the army there. So when let's talk about the talent part. General Ravi, suppose if someone is leading large team, so what mindset or skill shift is needed among India's workforce to embrace AI?
Right. So, right, there are two aspects to it. One is, of course, the workforce itself. Right. You require AI to use AI effectively. We require to skill our people right, and that skilling, we are well aware of, starts from right from your school education onwards. There are multiple statements given by industry leaders saying our engineers are unemployable. Right. I read it in the newspaper. I think last year somebody gave that statement also, that we are not skilled them in, which is true. When the fact is, a lot of our skilling is academic, whereas we need to skill them in the ability to implement and execute. To use something. We teach them everything which is bookish, but to actually execute it on ground, our workforce finds it difficult. So the two aspects which I said is, one is, of course, the need for skilling the workforce is well known. Do we have the system and the infrastructure for it? Well, you are as well informed as me. So that change is going to take a lot of time, because to the entire pipeline, which starts from school to college, university, and then internship and work, the entire pipeline needs to be revamped. And to revamp that entire pipeline is going to take time. It's going to take a lot of effort. One example which I keep giving everybody, it is not that it is difficult. One example I would like to give this here also is, you have housing booms happening in every metropolitan city. So you have Godrej, you have Shobha, Purvankara, Heritage. Every kind of builder is building houses everywhere. Has one builder have even one have an institute which trains tradesmen, whether it be a mason, whether it be an electrician, whether it be a building contractor, whether it be works management? Not a single builder has an institution which trains people. So even if one of them makes such an institute, and a person is taken in, and the condition in this is that when the person is trained, let's say 1 year training, 2 year training, that can be decided based on the skill which you are providing him or you are skilling him with. So once that has been done, that builder should have the liability, or should I say the responsibility, to use that individual in his construction projects for the next 5 years. Only then is he going to train him the right way. It is not going to be just a certification which doesn't mean anything. So similarly, what I would say is, to skill people in AI, you have to introduce AI very soon and very early in schools. It cannot be something now you're going to include after a person has gone through a learning curve, and now you're telling him now you have to readjust to it. That is also needed. But we have the youngest population in the world today. So unless you skill them the right way, you'll not be able to use them effectively and to the optimum levels. So there is a need for us to do that as far as workforce goes. But now coming to your leadership question, a leadership role is twofold. One, of course, is leadership has to understand the impact and the power and the effect of AI. That has to be understood by leadership. If leadership doesn't understand it, they are going to remain away from it, and they are going to get insulated from the implementation of AI in the institution they are running. As I said, they will have that agency within their own setup, which will tell them what to do. And no leader can be successful if he has to keep depending on people to tell him what to do. He has to be aware what is to be done. He may not know the nitty-gritties of it. He may not know the details of it, but the broad contours of it, he should be aware. And the only way he is aware is if he gets his hand dirty, he gets involved in the taskings of it. He gets involved in team performances. I keep reading a person called Subroto Bagchi. You should, if you're not, I would recommend it to people. And, he writes that very well. He says a lot of times leaders get parachuted into positions. Right? I'm doing something in other company. Suddenly I apply for a job here. I come and occupy that position there. And I have no idea what goes underneath. And I think that skill is transferable. That skill is not transferable. Yes, cross-domain expertise and cross-domain experience helps. But cross-domain experience cannot make up for, what should I say, cohesive experience on that domain. You can add value to what job you're doing through your previous experience. Today, I cannot sit at Neuralix and say I will run Neuralix because I don't have the experience to run Neuralix. I can bring in an insight which I've gained through my experience in another domain. So it's an extremely critical insight. Cross-domain insights are critical, but they can't replace domain expertise. So the best people are who have domain expertise and cross-domain experience. Both those things, of course, work well because that is the best of both worlds.
I'll tell you, when you talk about this training of the people, right? In India, definitely people do not train. People used to hire, and we do have a mindset that I hired this leader and he will just come in and just do the wonders without having the KTs, that is the knowledge transfer in place, right?
Right.
But the moment you provide sponsorship, or you hire, you import the guys from India to your on-site business. Let's say I have been having an opportunity. I'm hired from India and having deported in the UK, or let's say in the UAE, right? The moment I land in UAE, I become a liability to the company. For a single hour, right? If I'm not in the project, the business is losing money, and that is why
Yeah.
the person the moment he landed, the two roles started immediately. One the first role is his dependency, his responsibility towards the project. The second thing is about the leaders start training him on different skills, different things, because so that they can reduce this bench hours. In India,
Right.
again, just labors are free, workers are free, employees are free, right? So if project goes 3 months, you don't have any projects, you are on bench. Fourth month, business task, you are fired. And this is how any domain, anywhere, it works the same way, which is really bad. But the moment you've been deployed on site, the things changed. It happens in technology, it happens in constructions, it happens in manufacturing, it happens in health, any domain.
Yeah, one more point I want to highlight in this is, there is a need for. I was defense attaché in the US, and I saw once, our central AC system were failed, and a 60-year-old man came to repair it, and I was standing there when he was doing it. The problem he sorted out in 5 minutes. After sorting out the problem, he says, "Sir, I would like to take apart this because it hasn't been serviced for long. So I would like to do that." I said, "How much is it going to cost me?" So you know what he says, "Sir, I cannot leaving this machine in this state. It is against my professional ethos. So I am not charging you. I would like to service this because as a person who deals with ACs and who's been carrying out repairs in that, I cannot leave it in this state." And for the next 2 hours, he dismantled the entire thing, explaining to me each part and then reassembled it. That is passion. That is having pride in what we do. So unless people have that within themselves, it doesn't matter what kind of job you do. Even an electrician who knows the inside out of what he's talking about, you automatically respect him.
Amazing. I think we heard a lot of good stories from you, sir. Today, I had a great conversation. You told us about the OODA framework, the observe, orient, decide, and act. I think it's a very apt framework for even private sector and the corporate sector to adopt in this changing world of AI, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think it was a great insight. We were just listening to you, and especially me, I was just listening to you awestruck. Army stories have
Thank you.
always been great. It's great to discuss with you. It's great. It's an honor to have you on the platform, sir. Thank you. Thanks a
Thank you for
lot for your
inviting me.
time.
And just one additional information for you as far as this OODA loop goes. So,
Yeah.
it's called the Boyd's loop. It's based on an Air Force pilot of the US Air Force, John Boyd.
Okay.
He said in dogfights, fighter aircrafts earlier, now you have beyond visual range missiles. You don't even see the enemy aircraft. You can launch it from your sensors from way beyond and 100 kilometers away, and it goes and hits the enemy aircraft through sensor guidance. So you don't even see your opposing aircraft. But in the industrial age, even in Second World War and subsequently 1971, the wars we have fought, we have had dogfights. One aircraft chasing the other and shooting down the other. So when the Americans were fighting in Vietnam, they realized that the ability to observe, this whole thing, OODA came in, that a pilot who's able to observe, orient himself, decide his next course of action, and act is able to get behind the opposing aircraft. So that was the cycle. Now you abridge that cycle. You are
Yeah.
able to carry out. You have an advantage in dealing with an enemy or an adversary because of your
Right.
ability to orient and faster. Now, when you have
Right.
better sensors, now a lot of these present aircrafts have sensors wherein they fuse the data and it provides a common operating picture to the pilot. Now, suppose the aircraft which the adversary has doesn't have this kind of sensor fusion, he's always going to be at a disadvantage because he has more information about that individual than that person has about him. So the ability for him to take action is far faster. So similarly, in competitive markets, two companies making the same product, the company which has more information, which is able to orient and position itself faster and produce faster by acting on it, obviously is going to get a larger market share. So the simile or the relevance is exactly similar because information is king today. So getting information and orienting faster is going to position yourself better.
True.
So,
True. And
so I think
this
what you
was
said, I mean, manufacturing is the same. I mean, industry is the same.
yeah. Yeah, and the
Right.
example that you gave is the best. I think the best example to understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
But
Thank
thank
you
you for
for your
inviting
time.
me.
It was a
The best. Thank you. Yeah.
great
Nice.
conversation.
Likewise, Akshay, Prateek. All the best to you both.